Congratulations, I am Vivekananda. I work as an assistant director in Ministry of Defense. I cleared my exam 2014. And yes, I'm also into teaching of anthropology for last 4 years. I'm kind of teaching few places in Hyderabad. And yeah, first thing first, I want to congratulate you for this very decision for preparing civil service examination, isn't it? Because when people are, busy thinking about a high-paying corporate job or planning to go to abroad, make money, and you guys have made this noble decision. You want to add your value to the society, and you want to leave your imprints. That's the reason you might have chosen this civil services preparation. So let me congratulate you on that note. And coming to agenda of today's session, that is anthropology module. So good that you have chosen anthropology as an optional subject. And yes, I'll start with why anthropology. See, when people ask me on what criteria should I choose my optional, generally, what I say, 50% you have to, 50% weightage you have to give to the scoreability of the option. 30% weightage you have to give to, what your personal liking for the option. 15% to, kind of faculty available in the market or good faculty is 15%. Other 15% for, what kind of material is available in the market, and, what kind of, if material is getting constantly upgraded, if there are test series available in the market. These are few criteria based on which we are supposed to choose our option. On that note, I'm sure most of you might have made this basic analysis before attending this session. Anthropology, for last, I can say, for last 6 to 7 years, it's performing consistently and it's performing well. You often see good number of toppers in top 100 with anthropology, and there are people who, in a matter of 8 to 12 months, they are mastering this subject. There are also people who are mastering this in just 4 to 5 months and still reaching that 280, 300. B20 on a comfortable margin. People shifting from geography, people shifting from public administration, shifting from psychology and other some literature optionals which do not perform or which are not performing in the recent times. In that note, anthropology undoubtedly is a scoreable optional. And of course, your liking for option is something very important, which I'll try to address in today's session by trying to familiarize you with the subject content of anthropology. And yes, nowadays good test series support is also available in the market, and material constantly gets upgraded, which is also available in the market. So yes, undoubtedly, I can say your decision to prepare for anthropology is, for present times, it's undeniably a good decision. That much I can say. On this note, let me go further into subject of anthropology. Right, subject of anthropology. I'm sure before coming to this session, you would have done this basic homework. Anthropology, layman way of saying what is anthropology. Anthropology is study of humans. Anthropology is study of humans, and it's not an exaggeration to say, in fact, no other subject in humanities would study about human being with this levels of holistic and comprehensive way as anthropology. Means it kind of touches upon various facets or various aspects of a human as such. And that, say, I'll just start with this. We all have this, this questions intriguing our mind, right? Like, what is evolution? Did we humans evolve from monkeys? Or if so, are we still evolving? Isn't it? These are the kind of questions that keep, bothering us, or kind of, that keep challenging us from our childhood. Anthropology is one such optional which gives us convincing and compelling narratives about information related to human evolution. That's one very interesting part of anthropology, which we are going to read in detail, and all such, questions which kind of evoke curiosity in our minds would be addressed with good levels of details in this so-called optional anthropology. And going a little further, anthropology also does a detailed study of, say, society and origins of the society. Some of you must be thinking, what is this origins of society? See, origins of society, I mean, say, let's imagine now we are in some 4500 BC or something of that sort. Do you think people then at that point of time have like something called as a civilization or something called as a society? No, we are more or less similar to animals, wherein we can wake up every day and hunt food or search for food, eat food, and in the process of eating or getting food itself is a cumbersome thing, and people get tired at the end of the day and they go for sleep and the next day starts, and this is how human life used to be. When did society actually began? When something called as family actually began. Do animals have family? They don't have family, right? Do animals have a society? They don't have, right? And when something called as culture began, something called as culture means, see, when people started thinking about kinship means when people started thinking about relationship, when people started thinking about something called as religion means when people started believing about supernatural, when people started thinking about something called as an economic organization. When I'm saying when people started thinking about economic organization means, see, you go to a tribal society even today, some remote tribal society which is kind of less exposed to mainstream civilization or which is kind of untouched by human civilization, you go and give them a 10,000 rupee note, they do not know even how to spend it, or they do not know what to spend on. Means even today we have some people who do not know the value of money. Then you can imagine, or anthropology tries to give these kind of uh, uh, these kind of topics, or it will get us exposed to these kind of topics wherein how people in that point of time they used to organize, the economic organization of the society used to be. And even today there are many tribal societies which does not have any sort of political organization. Means, see, like we have parliamentary democracy, presidential democracy, or you have elections, you have somebody electing as a politician. Do you think small societies or simple societies like tribals, they have elaborate political organizations like we have? They don't. See, all these things are the recent developments which have happened in last 50 years or last 70 years. Before that, we don't have no elaborate political organizations. And we go to that depths and we will try to analyze when the first political organization actually began. How were the first political organizations like? When did idea of law has begun? Does something called as law exist in civil society? If not, how people in society used to, how social control used to happen, how people used to organize themselves. See, all these kind of ideas would be dealt in detail and at the same time in a very interesting manner in this subject called as anthropology. See, where did we start? We start by, I said that we will study about origins of the society. We will study about origins of culture, especially origins of language. When did language was first start? Does the language, when it had started, was it as elaborate and as as elaborate, and does it have these many types of languages at its beginning? And how did language progress over a point of time, isn't it? It is all part of culture, right? Then how, when did the first family organization began? When did the first economic organization began? When did the first political organization began? When people started thinking about supernatural, when people started thinking about religion. These are the kind of things we study in anthropology. And the things which I have mentioned largely are covered in part A, our first part of the anthropology. And as we go a little further deeper, we also have something interesting called as anthropological thought, theory part, just like all other humanities subjects like public administration or sociology and other, even geography also, I believe, has administrative thought or sociological thought. In anthropology also, we have anthropological thought. This anthropological thought, what it discuss or what it tells about, it tells about, it has nothing but different ways of understanding how culture, or how culture has developed. How culture has developed, like it has different schools like evolutionary school. Evolutionary school says that culture has started from very primitive stage and it has gradually progressed or evolved into the present stage. And other school called as diffusionary school talks about how cultural traits means aspect related to culture, isn't it? Like they have diffused. Diffused means how they have moved from one culture to another culture. Likewise, different things. Say ideas like functionalism, structural functionalism. Of course, in a demo class itself, it's not possible for me to give a detailed picture of all these things. But I just want to generate that interest over the subject. So the so-called anthropological thought talks about how culture has evolved, or how culture has spread, or how culture got influenced. All these kind of interesting ideas would be covered as part of this anthropological thought. See, even some of the advanced ideas like postmodernism. Nowadays in newspapers also, you often come across this term postmodernism. The postmodernist school, I'm sure some of you might have heard this term if you're already into preparation or if you're already done with coaching in some other humanities subject. Postmodernism means, say, I'll just give one simple example. These days some of the people that are saying that we also have to celebrate we also have to celebrate birthday of Ravana, and they challenge the authority of Lord Rama. What is this? Actually, it's part of postmodernist school. Postmodernist school, it says that uh, all the mythologies or all so-called books of religious authority, these are all written by people who are in power, who are in authority. So they have written these books, or they have set these rules of the society in such a way that favors them, and in such a way that it always ensures that the people who are oppressed, or people who are marginalized, or people who are in the downtrodden sections of the society, we call them subalterns. The subalterns were deliberately made or deliberately oppressed or suppressed in such a way that they never climb up the social ladder, or they never climb up the economic ladder. So these are the kind of ideas we study in this post-modernism. They say that the way in which the culture is organized, the way in which the mythologies are written, the way in which the religious texts are written, they are written in such a way that they perpetuate the dominance of the people who are in the higher class or in the higher caste of the society. So these are the kind of ideas we will study in anthropological thought. We move a little further, and as part of paper 1 part 2, we have something called as physical anthropology or biological anthropology, and this is one such part, wherein especially people who are from non-biology background, they'll be thinking that are we supposed to take anthropology because I'm not familiar with this so-called genetics, or I'm not familiar with biology related terms. Actually, these are all the myths being circulated. In reality, if you carefully analyze, most of the people who are topping anthropology, they are not doctors, or they are not somebody from biology background. Normal engineering students, with, see, in the beginning, it might be slightly unfamiliar. You might feel that discomfort. Once you cross that discomfort stage, it hardly takes 10-15 days. And once you get familiarized with these terms, it would be like a cakewalk. Only thing is that beginning 10-15 days, you have to do some extra bit of work. And of course, we are here to take care of, providing those basics on the biological terms to familiarize with you. Once you are get familiarized with those ideas, even biological anthropology is a cakewalk. And biological anthropology, I personally feel, is very interesting part also. Interesting in the sense, say, there are certain topics in biological anthropology like racism or racial profiling. All these kind of ideas now, they have a lot of contemporary relevance. And say even one idea like epidemiological anthropology, which is in the current COVID-19 pandemic time, it's very relevant. See, anthropology does not just study about evolution of the society, or does not just study about evolution of humans or evolution of culture. It also has this another very interesting component in understanding the linkages between epidemiology and culture, and ecology and culture. I know you must be thinking, what is this linkage between epidemiology and culture, ecology and culture? I'll give one simple example. Say, for instance, let's imagine there are some tribal groups in Chhattisgarh. You know what? These tribal groups in Chhattisgarh, they believe that there is a disease called as elephantiasis. You must be aware, right? Am I not clear? Voice is not clear? To confirm?
Getting voice, no problem.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So there are certain tribal groups who believe that, say for instance, elephantiasis. This is a disease in which legs will be swollen. They think that it is a blessing of God. And there are some types of tribal groups in Rajasthan. You might have heard about this term diarrhea, right? Diarrhea means like motion, we call it in common and parlance. They think that diarrhea is a blessing of God. And there are other type of tribal group in some parts of India who think uh, goiter. Goiter means whenever there is deficiency of iodine, there will be goiter, swelling of the neck part because of swelling of thyroid gland. They think it is normal. It is not a disease. Think a little deeper. So when I'm trying to say this, what I mean to say is that these so-called tribal groups, they don't even consider certain symptoms which normal mainstream society people consider it as a disease. They do not even consider it as a disease. So when they do not even consider something as a disease, don't you think it will have an impact on their health seeking behavior? health-seeking behavior means, see, if I have to go to a doctor, first of all, I have to feel that there is a disease or there is a symptom. Only then I will even think about going to doctor. When I am not even aware that something is a symptom, or when I even consider that the so-called symptom is the blessing of God, do you think I will even go to doctor? Definitely, when I go to doctor, I do not go to doctor. Definitely, it will have impact on my health, isn't it? Likewise, see, that's the reason, ma'am. If you try to carefully analyze the human development indicators in the country, and if you try to carefully see the health indicators or the education indicators of these tribal groups, these are the most marginalized of all the sections. Reason being they are most marginalized. It's not that government is not doing anything for them, or it's not that government is not at all spending money on them. Yes, government is trying to do whatever it can do within its limitations, but still that levels of awareness which people have or which people do not have is what that matters. And here comes into the picture the role of an anthropologist or the role of an anthropological knowledge. A normal administrator might not be aware of these kind of things. Here, an anthropologist or an administrator who has some basic knowledge on anthropology would try to implement a scheme in a better way so that he can improve the health indicators. I give another very classical example. See, I'm sure some of you must be from other part of the Telugu state, that is Andhra Pradesh, wherein there is one highway from Hyderabad to Kurnool. This is some part of it also is an expressway, and it's in this. There used to be several tribal hamlets on this way from Hyderabad to Kurnool. It's in hardly 3.5 hour drive. And these tribal hamlets, because of this road expansion, widening of the road, and proper laying of the road, the so-called tribal hamlets got divided into two, because the hamlets and the road dissected this tribal hamlet, and because of this, it got divided into two parts. What happened? Try to listen carefully. Because of this division of, and that tribals generally they have this, they're habituated to, alcoholism. It's not in a negative sense. It's the cultural aspect that they take alcohol. Alcohol means it's not that they take Indian-made foreign liquors or expensive liquors and all. They have a mahua flower, and this mahua flower, they'll try to view the mahua flower in their own houses or in a community hall, and they take this because they are into a lot of physical work. So they consider it as a kind of relaxation or a way of social gathering, which in turn gives good social solidarity among the tribal society. They are into this taking of this. It's not, this intoxication is a culturally accepted norm among the tribal. And yes, alcoholism also is kind of rampant among the tribal groups. Now, coming back to main idea, because of this laying of the road and widening of the road, and I told that tribal hamlet got dissected into two parts. Some of the tribal are on the one side of the road, and those hamlets, liquor shops are located on the other side of the road. And what's the consequence of this? Many of the tribal youth, because of this habit of taking liquor, and after having liquor on the liquor shops, and when they try to cross the road in that inebriated condition, they got mowed down by speeding vehicles. And in this process of trying to cross the road, getting hit down by roadkills, hundreds of tribals have died in this process. And as hundreds of tribals have died in this process, and many of the young tribal girls, they have become widows. And because of this, those so-called tribal hamlets, now they have turned into prostitution hubs, because adult male earning member getting killed because of road kills, because they're trying to cross the road in a created condition. And this has been documented even in a BBC. BBC has run a documentary on this, and entire India woke up to this. See, what I'm trying to impress upon you when I'm talking about ideas like this is, what did we do in the name of development? In the name of development, the kind of havoc we wreaked on the lives of these people without trying to understand the social impact of so-called developmental project which we conceived, we ended up doing them more harm. See, like if you just look at it outward way, it will be like good roads, speeding vehicle, improvement of the logistics, maybe some employment generation in the cities. That's all good things, fine. But what about these poor tribals who have lost their lives, and the families which have lost their livelihood, and young women turning into not just widows, but those hamlets turning into prostitution hubs? It's a major social disaster, isn't it? Is there anything much more bad a society can do with people? No, isn't it? So All these kind of ideas also we will study as part of anthropology. We will understand if government is implementing a problem, is implementing a program or a project or a scheme. If you have enough knowledge in anthropology, you will try to understand the social impact of the so-called project. You will try to understand the cultural impact of the project. And so I'll tell you what is this cultural impact also. Yeah, culture impact means, I'll just give one simple example. Say, for instance, if I ask you guys suddenly one question, say you must be belonging to different districts in Telugu state, or you must be from other parts of the country also. Please tell me five, or two folk dancers, or two folk paintings, or two folk theaters, or two folk musics of your district. How many of you will you? How many of you can quickly recollect and tell me? It takes some time, right? Maybe some of you can tell, but it takes time. And now, if I ask you, tell me some latest TV shows in Netflix series or something of that sort, I know most of you will answer just like this. See, not that we should not watch this so-called Netflix series, or we should not watch this web series. See, and what I'm trying to impress upon you guys is that we become what we are constantly exposed to. I'll repeat this statement again. We become what we are constantly exposed to. See, most of us now, we have more knowledge about how American society is. I know some of you who watch the so-called South Korean serials, you must be having more knowledge about South Korean society than you guys have about Indian society, isn't it? The reason, because we get used to, or we start identifying ourselves with what we get exposed to on constant basis, isn't it? So as you are more into watching South Korean web series, more into watching American web series, we end up thinking that, or we kind of get ourselves identified with those cultures. In this process, we are losing our nativity, we are losing our so-called identity. And not just losing our nativity and identity, we are also losing our so-called native traditions. Means, in the name of development, we are ignoring our own culture. And see, ignoring culture means it's easier said than done. See, let's imagine an art form, something called Oggu Katha. Oggu Katha is very popular in Telangana, or Perani Shivatandavam. It's a state dance festival of Telangana, right? So, do you think development of this particular art form, whether it is Oggu Katha or Perani Shivatandavam, just try to imagine how many years of hard work, how many years of innovation, creativity might have gone into that for maturation of that art form, so that it might have reached one particular stage of excellence. Then it would have taken hundreds of years of time. But let's imagine if our generation, if we are ignoring so-called art form for say 2-3 generations, if we ignore, then do you think that art form will remain? Definitely it will not remain, right? First of all, we don't know what is Perani Shivatandavam. Even if somebody does that performance, we attend that, we could not appreciate what is that Perani Shivatandavam. Which means, in the name of development, it's okay. Development has to happen, but we are ensuring, or we are not ensuring that our development is human safe. In the name of development, we are kind of inflicting a type of violence on the people and kind of disempowering them. So those aspects will be dealt with greater detail in tribal anthropology, and also certain parts of the first paper, second part of the anthropology, isn't it? Wherein we study about impacts of anthropology. Then also, as of paper 2, part 1, we study about caste system, we study about origins of the caste system, we will try to study about various features of the caste system, and the caste system has any benefits or any positive aspects of the society. We will try to study, or how caste system can have impact on the economic growth, how caste system can disempower people, how caste system can inhibit socio-economic mobility of the people. All these ideas would be dealt in detail, and how caste is transforming, or how caste is adapting to the newer trends also would be studied as part of this paper 2, especially these chapters called as caste system. And we also have certain ideas like village organization, village society, village system. Then we try to study about how Indian villages used to be, how Indian villages are evolving over time, how Indian villages got impacted by modernity, got impacted by commercialization, got impacted by trends of globalization, got impacted by entry of education, good healthcare. All these ideas also will be studied as part of this village organization. Okay. And yes, I try to give you a glimpse of. I did not go in organized manner, because if it's a regular offline session, generally I would circulate syllabus and I would go one topic after other. But as it's an online session, I could not do that. Anyways, I try to give you a glimpse or overall picture of the anthropology. Believe me, it's undoubtedly a very interesting subject, wherein the more you get into it, the more connected you will be to the subject, the more you will identify yourself with the subject. And like any other optional, definitely anthropology also has rich complementarity to your general studies preparation, wherein a good knowledge about certain topics like Indian society or Indian culture, or some topics like ethnocentrism or cultural relativism, they'll improve the quality of your answer writing, especially in general studies paper 1 Indian society. And also your knowledge in attempting ethics answers will be substantially improved if you read your anthropology well. And most importantly, in essays also, see, anthropology, what I mean to say is that it opens up your thinking. This is one discipline, which goes to that roots of everything. Say religion, the people, other discipline, they study religion in a very superficial manner. But we go to anthropology, we will try to study religion, we will try to challenge the existing norms, we will try to question why certain practices are there, why certain practices. Does that mean that everything about religion is bad? Does that mean that religious practitioners or religious functionaries, are they bad? Or the so-called, what do you call it, religious texts, do they have relevance even in the modern society? All these kind of intriguing questions will be addressed with a lot of conceptual clarity and depth in this subject. Say for instance, there are certain topics like in the topic of religion itself. Say we will say that we will try to understand the relevance of religion to the modern society. Say if I ask you guys a question like, do you think religion is relevant even in the modern times? And yes, such kind of questions often comes up. Say if you answer like a layman, some people say that no, religion is not relevant, religion has not relevance. Or some people may say yes, religion is still relevant to the modern times. But it's not that. Our answer has to be balanced in such a way that you have to substantiate your argument with suitable evidences by saying that yes, there are certain aspects of the religion which have lost their relevance, and they are kind of outmoded and have outlived their importance to the modern times. And yes, there are certain aspects of the religion which are still relevant to the modern times. And in this present era where individualism has grown, where community life is on decline, where and mental illnesses or psychiatric illnesses are constantly growing, people are feeling increasingly desolated, definitely religion has got its own importance. Likewise, these kind of reasoned arguments you will learn in the process of learning this discipline, anthropology, right? So this is what I want you to know. And like I would like to spend more time in addressing your questions. Like I just put up a word with Ravi if he's fine that with that, or if you want me to go in a little bit more detail about the subject, I can do that also. But as it's the very first session, I personally feel it would be good to interact with you on the subject specific things, rather than talking about which books you are supposed to read, or these kind of things we can do when we actually start the classes. Please not waste your time on that kind of ideas of which books you are supposed to study or which book you want to begin with preparation. All these things will be done as part of the classroom sessions. Of course, I'll also ensure that you guys write good number of questions when you attend my classes. Because my style of teaching is it's in the style of I would like to pose questions more, and I try to interact with you guys more, and I try to extract ideas from you. I personally feel it should be a two-way learning rather than me going on trying to dump my knowledge on you or information on you. That's not the way my class sessions will be. It's more of interacting, wherein I take lots of questions and I also take good ideas from you, and that's how we grow in this process together. And yeah, like I just want to spend next 5 minutes of our time on interacting with you. Interacting means not related to anthropology optional anthropology, but I want to just take one small topic and interact with you, so that it will be helpful to you, and it will also help you to get a taste of this so-called anthropology. Try to participate actively. You have a chat box. I have access to chat box. I can see your chat box and I can react to it. Okay. So yeah, I'll just pose this question. Do not be in a hurry to answer. think for a while and then try to answer, right? Yeah. So here's the question for you. So if a question is posed on you, like, in the present society, this is a statement I am giving. In the present society, family as a family as a social institution is witnessing decline. Yes or no? I'll pose the question here. Family as a social institution in the life of an individual is witnessing a decline. Comment. I'll repeat the statement again. Family as a social institution in the life of individual is witnessing a decline. Comment. Do not be in a hurry to answer. Take some time, reflect upon yourself, and it does not require any knowledge of anthropology to answer this question. It just is based on the common sense. It just is based on your ability to observe things or events happening in the surrounding, and based on hope the question is clear. And I'll be glad if I see participation from you, right? So I got a question. What is the main aim of anthropology? Yeah, main aim of anthropology, Manisha, obviously, main aim is nothing but we try to study with much more intensity and in much more holistic manner about society. You want me to repeat the question? Yeah, question is this simple, ma. Family as a social institution and its relevance is declining in the life of an individual. Comment. You want me to post it in the chat? That would be better. Yeah. I've just posted a question. Try to interact. What's the weightage of anthropology in other papers? It's not like you have weightage of anthropology in other papers, but yes, anthropology knowledge, would help you richly in understanding concepts in your general studies. That much I can say. I cannot specifically say that you read this part of anthropology and directly it will help you in that particular part of general studies. That I do not want to do. Okay, ma? Yeah. So Sagar says families were divided into nuclear family and everyone are busy in earning money, so the children are not getting any of the cultural, ethical, moral, social values, and this is going to impact the country in a big way. Okay, Sagar, agree with you. Then Sampath says family as a social institution is declining. Okay, good. As many trying to migrate for careers and due to advancement of technology and Western cultural influence, good. People are becoming judgmental and egoistic. Agree with you. They are not habituated to adjustment. Very good. That totally makes sense. That compromising tendencies have come down, right? As even live-in relationships are increasing in urban areas. Very good. Some couple are not even opting for marriage. They think family responsibility is a burden and an obstacle for their enjoyment. Very good. Very matured analysis. Yeah. This is the kind of interaction, or this is the kind of ideas we expect from students. Totally agree with you. There is nothing to counter or nothing to contradict this. Yeah, totally agree with you. Definitely, anthropology has connection to other parts of your general studies. That is what I'm trying to say. That's what. See, as anthropology is subject which is more related to your main, so when questions like this are posed, we will try to organize our ideas now. Say, how do we organize our ideas? Say, we will try to organize our ideas. Say, we will try to go for an introduction talking about, say, your introduction can be, you can introduce by saying that diverse rates in the society are increasing at an alarming rate. something you find in newspapers, and you can give a percentage. So this percentage of the marriages are getting dissolved. So it's like a catchy introduction to your answer. Then you will talk about role of the family in the life of an individual, what kind of role family plays in the life of an individual. Family has an economic role to play. Family has a psychological function. Family has the sexual or biological function, isn't it? Family has, social function, because family gives us social prestige. Family gives us identity. Family gives us a social relevance in the society, and family also has an economic function, isn't it? Because our parents are paying for our luxuries, parents are paying for our rent, parents are paying for our fees. So family has an economic function. Family has a psychological shock absorbing function, isn't it? We kind of open up our feelings. We kind of tell our stresses to the brothers, sisters, parents, isn't it? All these functions family does. That part we will analyze. Then we will see how we will try to analyze how each part is getting declined. The role of the family, economic role of the family, it is still relevant because parents are still funding education of the children. And social function, yes, still social function also is having some role, but it is witnessing a decline because previously, say some 3-4 decades ago, if somebody asks you who you are, we won't tell based on what education or based on what career we are in. We try to identify, I belong to so and so family, I belong to that particular. That is how people used to call themselves, identify themselves. So that social function also is witnessing a decline. Then most importantly, the psychological function means family acting as a shock absorber, family acting as a source of bonding, family acting as a source of solidarity. Definitely is witnessing a decline in the contemporary times because of this so-called careerism. Careerism means we are all, this rat race to achieve something big in our life. In this process, we are losing family values, we are losing this relationship, and that so-called, value internalization, which is an important function of the family, is getting diluted. And now joint families got replaced by nuclear families. So no grandparents at home, no cousins at home to interact, and many a times there are single child, and sometimes there are single parent families, sometimes single mother families. All these are the emerging trends, and as your friend has rightly pointed out, even relationships have grown, and now people have started talking or challenging the very relevance of the idea of marriage and family. This is how we try to, discuss and interact about different topics when we do our classroom sessions, right? Yeah. So Manisha says, joint families are declining these days due to change in lifestyle. Yes, I agree with you. It's not just due to change in lifestyle, it also has an underlying economic aspect attached to it. Because see, people want to stay in joint families even today, but can our what do you call it? Or does we have enough amount of income to have a joint family? Because I know some people who want to keep their parents at home, but they could not do it because they could not afford rent. Isn't it? Say for instance, in Hyderabad, if you have to have a 3 BHK or a comfortable 2-bedroom house, you have to spend around 25 to 35,000. But some people, somebody who is earning only 45,000 in his as his monthly salary, can he afford to keep his parents at home? He cannot afford, right? Because because the rents are quite expensive. So these are the kind of ideas we will try to discuss in the class, right? Yeah. I agree with you, Manasupriya. Like people are busy earning money and living a good life. They are not concentrating on what their children are doing. So it definitely affects the society. Yes, agree with you. So Naveen says, family as an institution, there are many, like children miss the care and affection of the parents, especially who are far from home, and it may impact on mental health of children. Exactly, Naveen, agree with you. Its relevance is decreasing. Parenting a child in right way is important due to this relevance. Many youth are doing exactly. Sai says that, Shira Savada Getil Sai, definitely Masti. Youth are increasingly resorting to substance abuse. Youth are getting victims of cyber bullying. They are becoming victims of pornography. They are becoming victims of cyber crimes because there is nobody to monitoring. That so-called parental monitoring, that so-called scope for socialization, scope for value internalization is witnessing a big decline. And yes, definitely it will have impact on the ethical coefficient of an individual, right? Yeah. So Kranti is asking a question. Selecting an optional subject for UPSC can be difficult. There are many subjects to choose. So however, if you are interested, you can consider anthropology as your option. Anthropology is different from most of the subjects that you have grown up studying. Yeah, I can agree. I agree with you. Even to be honest, before coming to civil services preparation, even I do not have much knowledge about anthropology. Only after coming here, because I'm a BS graduate, I seriously have not much knowledge. But the kind of exposure which anthropology gives you is quite liberating. you would feel like reading more and more and trying to get yourself equipped with more amount of knowledge. Yes. Books and all I'll discuss in the classroom, okay? Because this session will not permit, like the time will not permit me to discuss about the books and all. Books because we'll have a lot of time to discuss in the class, okay? Summary. Now let me take 5 more minutes of your time if you don't mind. Now you guys have opened up and you guys have told certain ideas like, yes, family's role is declining. So why don't you try to think a little bit more and tell me, yes, family is still relevant. Try to take other side of argument and try to put your views in that perspective. Question is clear. I'm trying to say that you guys have very rightly pointed out that role of family is declining, and you also have substantiated your ideas with good and qualitative arguments. And I completely appreciate you for that. Now I want you to think a little bit deeper and want you to tell me, no, family is still relevant and family still is performing a role in the society and it has to remain relevant in the society. Take this argument and try to substantiate your ideas. I'll give 2-3 minutes of your time before I move on to the next part of the discussion. You can use your chat box. I think all of you are aware of how to using chat box. Yeah, yes, agree with you, Manspriya. Family is trying to give good life to the children. So see, in our Indian society, like recently I read a good article in newspaper saying that reason why gross enrollment ratio in higher education in India is increasing in the recent times is because Indian parents are encouraging their children to go more for higher education. And also another very interesting idea regarding this context, students of higher education in India, they have less psychiatric illnesses or they have less number of mental illnesses when compared to the students from the Western world. It's not without a reason. In Western world, students generally parents do not fund their children higher education. They ask children to take care of themselves. That's the reason, at very young age, say 18, 19, 20 years, they kind of get busy in trying to earn a living. That's the reason they do all petty jobs and they try to fund their own education by taking hand loans from the relatives or friends or applying for educational loans. At least here in Indian society, Indian parents, they will take that burden. It's not that they have so much money to fund. Even if they don't have money to fund for the children education, they won't discuss it with the children and they'll try to take that stress on behalf of children and they try to fund for the education of the children. That's the beauty of the Indian family system. But for my discussion is very specific to education. But in other spheres of activity, also family has its own role to play. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Still, value internalization is something very important. All these crimes and all they are witnessing an increase. It's because when everybody is busy in their smartphone and they don't have time to interact and they don't have time to learn good things. These days now, when we visit somebody's house, in our say youthhood or in our childhood, when somebody comes to house, we used to wish them, we used to sit with them, talk with them, we used to gain knowledge from them. But most of the young generation now these days, like they have what do you call that? They have less humility, you can call them, or that respect for elders, or that what do you call that? Being receptive to new ideas, or being open to new ideas, being tolerant to new people, being tolerant to relatives, or all these are definitely witnessing a decline. This is happening because, as you guys have rightly pointed out already, that parents do not have time to tell their children about what is good, what is bad, how to introspect yourself, how to reflect upon yourself, how to examine yourself and your personality, your attitude, your character. All these things are not happening. So yes, definitely it already had impact on the personality of the child and of course of the youth, right? Then family brings the concept of togetherness. Yes, Prasad, I agree with you. Still exists in rural areas. Yes, I agree. In rural areas, still, definitely things are far better when compared to urban. Yes, Sridhar, agree with why do we have different geographical regions have different language accents? Manisha, that's a very good question. As you have posed the question, try to think on your own, but I'll try to give you some basics. There is something called as dialect. Isn't it? Dialect means every language, it has a dialect. Like just like a language has a dialect, it also has a socialect. Socialect means, say, let's imagine you are talking to your friends. The way or the style in which you talk would be something else. You are talking to elder, or you are talking to your faculty, you are talking to some senior. You talk in a different way. Or say, let's imagine you are attending an interview. You talk in one particular way. Say you are talking with somebody who is new to you. Your language varies. So one person on different social occasions, if you are talking these many languages, then why not one, each geography has its own style or accent, isn't it? Several factors will come into play and they will determine the kind of dialect people in that particular area. Okay. Yeah. Sampath says we have seen so many suicide cases. Suicide is not having a person who gives a shoulder and supports and loneliness. Exactly. The so-called loneliness is on an increasing. Families will stand with us, and when are facing problems, they are really stress busters after a hectic. They sacrifice and just exactly. Sampath. Agree with you. Yes. Good. We had a healthy discussion, I believe. So on this note, before I end the session, I know I did not address that idea of what books to read for anthropology, because it takes a lot of time, at least 1 hour of time for me to detail on what books to read, what not to read. As our regular classroom sessions begin, I'll try to tell you what books to read, because I personally am not that person who will suggest by all these list of books, then you start reading. That kind of preparation I don't believe in. I suggest you to read anthropology topic wise than book wise. That's the best way to prepare for anthropology. Not that you have to buy Ember and Ember, buy Nadeem Hussain, buy Vivek Bashmi, buy anthropology materials, buy Telugu Academy textbooks, keep all, file them together, and you don't read. That doesn't matter, right? That's not the way you are supposed to read the subject. You will get used to me once the classroom session begins. Yeah. Environment definitely has an impact on whatsoever. Yeah, yes, Prasad. Yes, family will definitely make you a better person. Right? Yeah. Kranti, I have to know able to score marks choosing a different option subject before this time. Therefore, I must if I choose anthropology. Hopefully, Kranti, but like any other optional, anthropology also demands enormous amount of hard work. Let me not make all fake claims on false promises that you take anthropology, you will get 300. No, that will not happen with any option for that matter. You have to respect the subject which you are studying. You have to give it good amount of time. You have to be consistent in your preparation. You have to keep yourself constantly updating. Don't be in that illusion that you get exposed to good faculty and will ensure that you get marks. That will not happen. Faculties and all, see, all the role which we play is only some 20 to 25% role mark. 75% depends on what you are actually doing. Isn't it? I'm not into that branding exercise wherein you join my classes, you get scores. No, I won't do that, promises and all. I will try to do, or we will try to do whatever we can do from our side. We will do our best. Like we try to expose you to the best quality material available in the market. We try to, wherever necessary, we will try to give you notes. We will try to make you practice answers. We will try to ensure that you are updated with the recent developments in the discipline. That's our responsibility. Your responsibility is to, further develop upon that, isn't it? You have to work hard because you are the ones sitting and studying for 10 to 12 hours of a day on a consistent manner. So you are the ones have to improve upon what has been discussed in class, isn't it? Faculties, we spend only less amount of our time on studying, isn't it? And that too, the discipline which we are familiar with, we will try to be familiar, and it's your responsibility to constantly update yourself, work really hard, and if you, of course, you also have to be really consistent in your preparation. That will definitely ensure that. And one thing I can promise, this is one such optional subject. Greater the amount of time you give it, and greater the quality of your preparation, higher the scores you will. That much I can definitely say. Yeah, Harichandra, it's not directly related to current affairs, but yes, events of current happening will be will have direct bearing to the second part of the subject. But undeniably, anthropological concepts have to be understood through current affairs, and current affairs will enrich your knowledge of anthropology. It's kind of a healthy exchange of the events in current happening with anthropology subject. It's either way, it's a mutual interface between both. Yes. So any other question before I hand over session to Ravi? Yes, please, you can pose any questions if you want. Any magazine for anthropology? There is nothing like any specific magazines and all. And of course, that part we will take care. We will take care. Don't worry. Of course, there are certain anthropologists like Man in India and all. With the limited time which you guys have, I don't personally suggest that you read those. We will do that work on our behalf, and we will try to give you the gist or summaries. You read that properly, because see, most of the time students, they greedily buy all the material available in the market and they end up reading them. I personally don't suggest that. Not that you take material from this institute, class handwritten class notes of one topper or classroom material of other faculty, and you end up reading nothing. That's and see, you take the worst possible material in the market. I don't mind. Read it twice, thrice, 4 times, and have everything in your mind. That's more important. I don't like having so many books reading nothing. That will not help much. Take anything, believe in it, trust, repose your trust on it, go deeper, analyze everything with a lot of intensity. That's how you are supposed to prepare for a subject. It's not that you fritter your energies on multiple things and end up getting nothing. No, that's not the thing. Be very specific. First, learn one material, trust few persons, and go deeper into the subject. Get a grip over the subject. Then you can diversify different sources, and you can constantly keep adding to your knowledge. Okay. Yeah. Kaka report, you have to read Kaka report. It's very well written, and it's very much relevant to the exam, and we also will richly quote content from Kaka. Yes, somebody. Yeah. Please tell me a strike point to take anthropology as an option. That's what I'm not into that branding or marketing of impressing upon you why you have to take anthropology. See, you guys are all adults now. Now that you have your mind, you can think on your own, isn't it? Don't believe in too many people. Don't take suggestion from too many people. I'll just tell it as simple as it. The way you have to decide upon your optional. 50% give importance to scoreability. I'm saying it again. 50% give importance to scoreability. 30% give importance to your personal liking for the subject. 15% you give importance to the faculty. Only 15% to the faculty. Other 15% to quality of material available in the market and test series support available in the market. You need not ask anybody. You need not take suggestion from anyone. Think on your own. Spend some time on yourself. Try to write this. Do systematic analysis and decide on your own. More the number of people you ask, more they will confuse you with more number of suggestions. See, my idea is to empower the students, but not make them dependent on you. Okay. I can very easily impress you saying that you take anthropology, you will get 300, 320, and just read my class notes. You need not read anything. I can very much easily say, I can, rake up your emotion and make you feel that if I am with this so-called faculty, he'll ensure that no, I don't want to do that. You are all, I respect your dignity. I respect your ability to think and decide on your own. My responsibility is to give you some information, some inputs, which will help you in deciding upon taking anthropology as a subject. Okay, let me not enter into that branding thing. After all, I'm not even a faculty, but I'm interested in teaching. And when good people, and motivated people like Ravi, isn't it? I have to appreciate him for starting such a good institute in Hyderabad with such good intent. When such people would ask us to contribute, I'm always open to contribute, and that's the reason we're in fact. Ravi, I think students have questions or ended.
Yeah,
please.
Then it's fine. Chalo, thank you, Vivekananda. And yeah, dear students, 1 minute, let me see. Yes. Fine. Any doubts?
Let me interrupt. So I also have to congratulate Ravi because for this, because Hyderabad is badly in need of young people who have that lot of enthusiasm to do something good to Telugu students, and of course not just Telugu students, every other student. I wish him all the very best, and so that in a very short span of time, with the kind of passion he's kind of demonstrating into bringing value to the civil service aspirant students, I'm sure the institute will grow very big in very short span of time.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.